23 knife wounds. Only one of them was fatal. And the man who pulled him into that room wasn't Brutus. He was Caesar's friend. Rome's most powerful man saw it coming. A fortune teller warned him. His wife woke screaming from a dream of his body in her arms. A stranger pressed a note into his hand that named every killer waiting inside. He walked in anyway. Because the men with the knives weren't enemies, they were the people he trusted most. One of them he loved like a son. By the end of this, you'll see the cruelest twist in history. They killed him to save Rome from a king. And the killing is the exact thing that handed Rome a king. Stay with me. Almost everything you know about this day is slightly, fatally wrong. Start with the title. Not king. Worse, to Roman ears. Dictator. For life. Rome had used dictators before. In a crisis, the Senate handed one man total power for 6 months, then took it back. 6 months. That was the leash. Caesar cut the leash. Dictator perpetuo. Dictator forever. Stamped on the coins where a living Roman's face had never gone. For 450 years, Rome had sworn one oath after throwing out its last king. Never again. Now one man held everything, for as long as he lived. So a group formed, around 60 of them. They called themselves the Liberators, not assassins, liberators. In their own minds, they weren't ending a life. They were ending a monarchy before it could be born. Here is the first thing the legend gets wrong. The man pulling the strings was not Brutus. It was Cassius. Lean, sharp, full of old grievances. Cassius did the recruiting, the whispering, the cold arithmetic of who could be trusted. Because Cassius knew something crucial. If Cassius killed Caesar, it was murder. If Brutus killed Caesar, it was justice. Brutus carried a name that went back to the founding of the Republic, to the ancestor who drove out the very first king. Cassius supplied the will, Brutus supplied the cover. The conspiracy didn't need his sword. It needed his honor, draped over a very ugly knife. To understand the betrayal, understand the love underneath it. Civil war had split Rome in half, Caesar against Pompey. And a young senator named Marcus Brutus picked Pompey. He took up arms against Caesar. Hold on to this. Caesar adored that young man. Brutus's mother had been the great love of Caesar's life. And there were whispers, never proven, probably false, that Brutus was his own son. So when Pompey lost, Caesar gave one order. Find Brutus, do not harm him, bring him to me alive. Most victors execute the men who fought against them. Caesar forgave him completely, then promoted him. Honors, a governorship, a career most senators would kill for. That mercy is the rope Brutus would use to hang him. And then the whispers began. Anonymous notes on Brutus's chair in the Senate, on the statue of his famous ancestor. Brutus, are you asleep? You are not the real Brutus. Your blood freed this city once. Will you watch it die under a man who calls you son? The night before, the city does not sleep easy. Inside the dictator's house, his wife Calpurnia thrashes in the dark. She dreams the roof collapses. She dreams she is holding her husband, bleeding, in her arms. She wakes certain of one thing. If he leaves the house, he dies. In the morning, she begs him. This is a woman who never asks for anything, and she is on her knees. And the most rational man in Rome listens. He decides to stay home, to send word the Senate is dismissed. That decision terrifies the conspirators more than any army could. 60 men are already armed. They know if he doesn't appear today, by tomorrow someone talks. By tomorrow they are all dead. So they send their best weapon, not a blade, a friend. Here is the second twist the legend buries. The friend who talked him into going was named Brutus, but not the one you're thinking of. This was Decimus Brutus. Another Brutus. Another man Caesar trusted absolutely. Another conspirator. Caesar would no more suspect Decimus than suspect his own hand. Decimus laughed at the dream. He asked if the master of the world really took orders from a woman's sleep. "The Senate is waiting," he said. "They mean to offer you a crown today. What will they whisper if you send them home? That Caesar is afraid? That Caesar waits for better omens like a frightened old man? Watch what's happening. The killers aren't using force. They're using his pride, the one weakness in a man who had no others." And it works. Caesar rises. He takes Decimus by the hand that will help hold him down within the hour, and they walk out together. The plot was dead at his front door. A friend revived it. Now the streets. And the strange thing about this walk is how many times Rome itself tries to stop him. In the crowd stands the fortune teller who'd warned him, "Beware the Ides of March." Caesar sees him and can't resist. He calls out, almost laughing, "The Ides have come, old man," meaning your prophecy failed. And the seer answers, "Quiet, the Ides have come, but they have not gone." He keeps walking. Then a man shoves through the crowd and presses a small scroll into his hand. "Read it now," he hisses. "Read it at once. It concerns you." Inside that scroll is everything: the names, the plan, the place. And the most powerful man in the world holds his own death warrant in his fingers and never unrolls it. Too many petitioners, too many scrolls. He keeps it rolled in his hand and walks on. And forget the painting in your head, because even the room is a myth. It was not the Senate House. The Curia was under repair, wrapped in scaffolding. So the senators met that day in a hall attached to a grand theater, a complex built by Pompey, Caesar's old rival, the man he had chased across the world and destroyed in civil war. And inside that hall stood a tall marble statue of Pompey, looking down. Caesar comes unguarded. Months ago, he had dismissed his Spanish bodyguard. "A ruler ringed by spears isn't loved," he'd said. He'd rather die once than live every day braced for the blow. So he arrives with friends. Only friends. Of all the rooms in Rome, fate had walked him to the feet of the enemy he killed. They surround him with a question. One conspirator approaches as if to beg a favor for an exiled brother. Others lean in to support the plea, pressing closer, touching his robe, his shoulders, a wall of friendly bodies. Then the man grabs Caesar's toga with both hands and yanks it down from his neck. That is the signal. The first blow comes from behind, to the throat. Clumsy, a glancing cut. Caesar spins, grabs the arm, stabs at it with the only weapon he has, his writing stylus. For one heartbeat, the dictator of Rome is just a man fighting to live. Then he sees the rest of them. Knives everywhere, coming from every man he trusted. And in that storm, he sees one face he knew better than the others. The boy he'd spared. Marcus Brutus, with a blade in his hand. You've heard the line. Shakespeare wrote that 1,500 years later. The oldest sources say something colder. Either Caesar said nothing at all, or, seeing the young man he loved like a son, he murmured in Greek, "Kai su teknon," you too, child. Not you traitor, not you coward, child. And then he stopped fighting. He pulled his robe over his face so no one would watch him fall. What followed was not an execution. It was a frenzy. 60 terrified men, stabbing in a space too small to escape, packed so tight that some of them cut each other. These were senators, not soldiers. Hands slick, robes soaked, 23 wounds. But here is the truth the legend forgets. A physician named Antistius later examined the body and found almost every cut was shallow, glancing, panicked, badly aimed. Only one wound, the second blow, to the chest, had actually killed him. All that hatred, all those blades, and Caesar's death came down to a single thrust, lost inside 22 acts of fear. He bled out at the base of Pompey's statue, splashed across the feet of the rival he had beaten, as if the dead man had finally won. The liberators stepped back, hands red, certain they had saved Rome. They marched into the streets shouting the tyrant was dead, the republic was free. They were wrong about every word. They expected cheers. Instead, Rome recoiled in horror. Caesar had been loved by the common people, and at his funeral that love turned to rage. The crowd nearly tore the conspirators apart. The men who killed to free Rome had to flee the city they thought they'd liberated. The killing didn't end one-man rule. It lit a civil war that burned for over a decade. Within a few years, nearly every conspirator was dead. Cassius, Brutus, Decimus, gone, most by their own hands. Then the killing did the one thing it was meant to prevent. Out of the wreckage rose Caesar's heir, a quiet, sickly teenager named Octavian. Nobody feared him. That was his weapon. 17 years after the Ides of March, he stood alone at the top of the Roman world, under a new name. That is the irony, total and merciless. 60 men drew their knives to stop one man from becoming king. The republic they bled to protect died on that floor and never came back. The empire they killed to prevent arrived anyway, faster and more absolute than Caesar himself had ever dared. Caesar's name became the very word for emperor, Kaiser, Tsar. The title outlived the republic by nearly 2,000 years. If this rewired what you thought you knew, you already know the kind of story we tell here. There's a myth about how Caesar came into the world, the one about being born by C-section, and almost everything you were told about it is wrong too. Subscribe to Empire Archives. Next time, the night Rome burned, and the emperor everyone blames may never have lit the match.